Hannah was 2.5 when she came home, and then when she was 5 years old, the social worker who had done the home study for us called us and said there was another child in another state, and the family, this happens, this sort of thing happens, the family was going to give her up for adoption because the family was unfortunately splitting up, very sad story. And Joe and I just naturally said, of course, we'll do this. And so we went there, and we went through the process, and we went forward with it, and we found out that we were just way in over our heads, and we ourselves were not able to complete that adoption, and it was a very devastating thing. She was in our home for a few weeks, and you know, the short of that, the long and short of that is that she did find the perfect family who otherwise would not have known about her, and they all lived happily ever after. So that did turn out to be a beautiful story, but we were devastated by that for about 3 years. You know, you go through feelings of guilt and, you know, feeling inadequate and everything. So for 3 years, we were done. This was our family. We didn't talk about adoption anymore. It was very, very difficult. And
right.
so
you go through this stage where when you're adopting, you have this idea, and we started at first, obviously, with Hannah wanting to have a child of our own and wanting an adopted child for our needs.
Right, it was about us. It was all about us in the beginning, and wanting to grow our family.
When we got this new little girl in our home who was 9 years old at the time, so she was not in birth order, and she was in the middle of the ages. And there were a lot of issues that
we couldn't handle.
We
didn't understand.
No, when you're going into an adoption, you think you can accomplish anything. You think you're super parents because you're doing such a great thing, and you're doing something. You feel like you're doing the Lord's work, if that's the case, and you think everything will work out okay. And it didn't. It didn't work out okay.
And it was because we did not understand the needs of the child, and so.
Right.
In this particular case, you know, the best needs of the child were met by
another family
another
who
family.
Had different birth order,
different
skills, and they had a position in their family that was more accommodating to her and to her needs. We were not that family for her. But I got to tell you, it took years for us to get over that, and we figured we were done. And not going, maybe perhaps not, we weren't really pursuing adoption anymore at all until the mail came.
One day I was putting Hannah on the school bus, and I went out to get the mail at the same time, and we got this publication for parents of blind children. And I was going to just look at it later after I put Hannah on the bus, but it had this slick new copy and cover, and I said, oh, that's a slick new cover, and so I started leafing through it. And all of a sudden, there was Jesse's picture. And if anybody's ever experienced this, you can understand it, but I mean, literally, my heart stopped. My ears were ringing, I was shaking. It's just very difficult. Even now, as I talk about it, that's what happens. It's a very difficult thing to explain, but I just knew that that was my daughter, and I felt like
little Korean girl with its blind, and she's on a little
of course she reminded us of Hannah.
She's like Hannah when she was little, and it was like, okay, well, you know, so I think
I called you.
You called
first.
me, and I think you called the agency and said, well, you know, can you send her packet? And so they sent her packet, and you know, life went on for a few weeks, and then, you know, I think a few weeks later you called back to the agency.
It didn't take long.
And said, well, you know, how many other families, you know, have asked for her packet? And they said, well, only you.
Which is really kind of sad.
You know, and we thought, well, this magazine went out to, you know, God knows, 500,000 people. Who knows how many people got this magazine that had this half-page feature of this little beautiful Korean blind girl.
It was just meant to be. And we just, it just was
no
meant
one
to
else.
be.
And it was like, okay, you know, send us the information.
And we heard that they had actually canceled her adoption, thinking that no one would adopt her.
Yeah, 'cause she
And-
was on the charts as we looked at her records, that she had gone through a number of physical exams and the quarterly meetings and all this stuff, and they had basically queued her up to live in an institution for the rest of her life, and that she would be unadoptable. And she was
Jessie was not
Mrs. Jessie,
unadoptable, I can tell you
and
that.
she was she was born with ROP, which is retinopathy of prematurity, which she was born at
28 weeks.
28 weeks. And ROP is something that's somewhat common in third world countries, in that the oxygen that a preemie needs to keep their brain waves and their health up is the enemy of the eye and the retina as it's developing. So when a child that's not monitored in a preemie situation, the eyes can be essentially attacked by this oxygen,
It is common.
and it causes hemorrhaging in the retina. And so that was her condition. She has ROP, and she had, and the last stage of that, stage 4 or 5 of ROP, is a completely detached retina, or on both sides, so there's no connection to the optic nerve. So she had no sight,
No light perception at all.
no light perception.
But we brought her home, and she's our daughter, and we love her, and she's great. So